Yes, and now I turn back to you. So sorry for
Okay. No, no problem.
yes. Okay, yes.
All right.
Again.
Try again. All right. Sounds good. There we go. Are we good now?
Yes.
All right. Okay. We're going to use a verse in the Bible to talk about the most famous saying that Jesus of the Bible ever said. It is oftentimes called the Golden Rule. And so it wasn't called that originally. It wasn't until about 400 years ago that a theologian named it the Golden Rule, and it kind of stuck. And now, when we think about this verse, we simply call it the Golden Rule. And here's what that rule says. It says, "Whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets." And so we want to talk about that today and talk about what does it mean to do things to others, and how is it important. And uh, uh, Jesus is saying that. Well, let me start here. Uh, let me think here. I kind of lost my train of thought here. Yeah, let's kind of begin here. The reason why I asked you to have a Bible is because this is the end of a very lengthy message. We call it a sermon. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. It is the end of a very lengthy, long uh, speech. It would be another way to put it. And so this would be the last verse of his teaching to his audience and to the people who had gathered there. So when Mike asked me, said, "Brian, would you uh, talk about the golden rule?" I thought, well, yeah, we can, but it is important to talk about the context of the verse. And when you read the Bible, you have to always think what precedes it, the verses before it, and what comes after it. So to just pull a verse out of the Bible and not explain the before and the after can sometimes lead to a misunderstanding of what, in this case, Jesus was trying to say. And so uh, the verses that precede Matthew 7:12 are what are called the Sermon on the Mount. It took place in Israel uh, a couple of thousand years ago on a hillside, in other words, a mountain, Sermon on the Mountain. It would be like you going up to Sapa and going up to the top or somewhere on the mountain and sitting down, and he then began to teach. So this sermon begins in Matthew chapter 5, verse 1, and concludes with this particular verse. Now, in this sermon, I would encourage you to read it, and Lucy would be glad to figure out a way to get to you a copy of the Bible so that you could read it, like I am as well. And I'm sure we can make that happen. And I'm sure we can, can't we, Mike? Can we get her a copy of the Bible?
Yes, sir. I think that
Oh,
will be my task next week, Pastor Brian.
Okay, all right. That would be real helpful to read Matthew chapter 5 through this verse. So anyhow, you have this now in this message, in this sermon. uh, Jesus was saying to them, giving them a new way of life. And he was talking to them about a different way of life. Now, each time we talk about a verse in the Bible, I always like to say that you must look at it in its context. And Lucy, you being a teacher, know exactly what I'm talking about, because you don't just start teaching something in the middle of it. You begin with step one, step two, step three, or A, B, C, D. So you do it in the manner. And the same thing when you read this Bible. So you look at what precedes it, what comes after it, and the sermon that Jesus gave was a remarkable description of a new way of life. In that particular day, there was much religion. In fact, Israel during the time of Jesus was a very, very religious um, culture. And when Jesus came and began to teach, he taught differently, and he presented to the people a new way to live their life. And this Sermon on the Mount is a call for us to examine our who we are inside. Now, last week we talked about judging. That meant we had to look inside. And the same thing with the whole sermon, we have to look inside and see who we are inwardly. But the Sermon on the Mount is also it's not to just be to read uh, and look at and say, oh, that's good. It is a sermon that we look at, or a teaching that we examine, and then we try to apply it. And again, I'll pick on you a little bit, Lucy. When you are teaching your class, what do you want them to know? You're going to teach them, but you want them to understand it and apply it. If you're teaching a math problem, you teach them, but you want them to come up with the correct answer. So the same thing with a sermon like this. It is designed to, Jesus wanted the people to look and to examine, listen to what he was saying, but ultimately he wanted people to apply what he was talking about. So the Sermon on the Mount also does something. When you read the Sermon on the Mount, there in that day, when Jesus first taught, there were many people who were very, very religious, and they considered themselves to be very, very good people. They considered themselves to be righteous. But notice that I have outline, perceive, and that's a big word. That means that they were thinking that they were very good people. That they perceived that in their mind, but it was not really accurate. Now, when we think we are good and when we are not, that is called being self-righteous. And so Jesus looked at his culture, the religious people, who said, we are very, very good people. And Jesus, by giving them this sermon, helped them to see that they needed to make some changes, that they were not as good as maybe they thought they were. It's hard for us today because all of us want to perceive that we are good. Sometimes we are not as good as what others may think about us. So this sermon attacks this self-righteousness. Now, in Matthew, now that's the background, the context for Matthew 7:12. In other words, you read that, Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, and then you come to this verse, and you look at that, and then Jesus says, now here is the application. I presented truth. I presented teaching. It is a call to look inside. Now, here's how I want you to apply this. So when we apply this golden rule, it will bring great glory to God. And it says to the world that I am following for my life a different way. Now, in America, there are many, many religions. In Vietnam, there are not as many different religions. I think about Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, Cao Dao, several things that are around. And there's not as in animism, ancestral worship, all kinds of things like that. Not as many. In America, there are many, 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 many religions. And so when you choose to follow the golden rule and follow the Sermon on the Mount, you say to your friends, to your world, to your culture, I'm following the way of Christ. And he has taught me a different way to live. And so this rule, Matthew 7:12, is a statement that fulfills what Christ said at other times. He said that we are to love God and love our neighbor. Now, the verses there would be Matthew 27:37 through 40, and Mark 12:30. Now, here's what Jesus said in another place. He said, a guy came to him, he says, God, said to Jesus, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus looked at the man and said, okay, you are to love God. You are to love him with all of your heart and all of your mind and all of your soul. And then he said, love your neighbor like you love yourself. So what does that mean? It means the way that we begin to live by the Sermon on the Mount is to know the God of the Bible, the Most High God. There are many gods in our world, but to know the Most High God. In fact, if you will look at the statement there, I have God with a little g. You're to love God and love our neighbor. That should be a capital G, because there's only one supreme God, the Most High God, and that is the God of the Bible.
Yes.
Now, it is also interesting that in almost religions, we can find some version of this golden rule. But in every other religion, it is stated in the negative. And so people who are theologians, they say, well, there's the golden rule, which is Matthew 7:12, and all of these other religions is called the silver rule, meaning that it's not as important as the golden rule. So it is just really kind of fascinating. Now, for example, you find a version of the golden rule in Catholicism, if you are familiar with what Catholics believe. It is found if you were a Jewish person, you would see it in the same way. If you are a follower of Islam, you would see a version of the golden rule. If you were a Hindu, you would see a version of the golden rule. In Buddhism, you would see a version of the golden rule, and you would see it in Confucianism. But they're all stated in a negative way. And that therein lies the difference. Now, even secular governments look at all of this, and they say to follow the golden rule is not even possible. So they say we will determine as the state what is right and what is wrong towards your neighbor. Even among religions, they advocate the golden rule to bring all religions together. This is a picture in the United Nations, and I'm sure you heard of the United Nations. It's worldwide influence. One of our president's wives, Nancy Reagan, gave this picture to the United Nations, and it hangs in the building, in the United Nations building in New York City. And you will see there the golden rule stamped on there. So you see people from all over the world, and you see people of different religions in this picture. And so in the United Nations, they're saying if we follow the golden rule, we will have peace in our world. The one I mentioned just in the previous one, the world Parliament of the World's Religions, say if everybody would follow the golden rule, then all of the religions would come together. So it is very, very influential. Now, this is the last verse in the Sermon on the Mount. And it is the command that Jesus is giving, saying, okay, I've given you this long sermon, this long teaching. Now, what I want you to do now is to apply the sermon. I want you to take what you have heard, and I want you to do something with it. So, what is the principle? When we decide to join Jesus in this new way of life, and here's how we join with him. We say to God, God, I know that I'm a sinner, I'm wrong, and I would like to invite your son, Jesus, to come and live in my life. And when you do that, you begin a new way to live, the Sermon on the Mount way. And so it becomes very important. And what is the principle? When we begin to believe in Jesus, when we accept him into our heart, we begin to love our neighbor in the way in which the sermon teaches. Now, I wish that I had expressed to Mike earlier, asked me to do this verse. In thinking back, I should have said, okay, Mike, everybody that's going to be watching, have them read Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And I did not, and I apologize for that. Because verse 12, the golden rule, is based on what has been said before that. So that's very important. Now, I mentioned that in all of the major religions of the world, I actually did a short study in preparation for this time together. And as I was studying, I realized that every religion has this rule in their religion. The difference being, it is that they are all done in a negative. They take the rule and they say, if you don't want somebody to do something to you that might hurt you, then don't do it to them. But Jesus says, now listen, you are now following this new way of life. So I want you to do what I'm teaching to others. Does that make sense? You see, it's a small point, but it's a big point. The other religions say, don't do something because you don't want them to do that to you. Jesus says, listen, you go out into the world and you begin to practice doing what I have been teaching you. Now, that is very, very important. And it's what separates Christianity from the other religions of our world. The religions in your country, the religions in my country, in our world. Jesus says, you take the initiative, you start, you be the first one. You go out into your world and you do what I. So what did Jesus teach? I think that's where we to we begin to realize that there are so many things. Now, what did Jesus teach? I wrote down a bunch of notes here. Let's see. I've kind of jumped ahead of myself. Let's see if I can find some of the things that that Jesus said for us to do. Hang on just a second. Well, let me just read it out of the Bible. That'd be better. For example, Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, he said all kinds of things. He said we are to be a light to our world. He said we are to be honest. We are to be good. We are to care. We are to love. Are to be compassionate, and on and on and on. So Jesus says, here's what I want you to do. You've listened to what I have to say. Now I want you to go and do it. So in Matthew 7:12, do unto others. It begins with you. And it begins with you doing good things, positive things, the things that Jesus taught to the world that you live in. Does that make sense? Okay,
Yes.
what kind of questions do you have?
Yes. Pastor Brian, can you quit the sharing screen so that we can
Okay.
yes, yes. Yes, here we are. We see you again now.
All
Yeah.
right.
So um, Leo, Hang, and Lucy, can you understand what Pastor Brian just shared about the golden rule? Golden rule nghĩa là điều bạn muốn người khác làm cho mình hãy làm cho họ. Right? Điều mà bạn muốn làm cho bản thân mình hãy làm cho mọi người. Right? Và bác nói về silver rule, có nghĩa là nghĩa tiêu cực đó là gì? Điều bạn không muốn làm cho mình đừng làm cho mọi người. Thì hai cái, một cái là tích cực, một cái là tiêu cực. Một cái tích cực có nghĩa là Chúa Giêsu đã dạy rất là nhiều điều rồi. Bây giờ bạn có muốn đón nhận những điều đó không? Đón nhận đối phương được không? Có. Vậy thì làm cho người khác luôn đi. Đúng không? Còn những cái tôn giáo khác thì họ nói rằng là ok, nếu bạn làm điều này, bạn không muốn làm điều này cho bản thân bạn thì đừng làm cho người khác, thì đồng nghĩa việc là không làm gì cả. Đó thì đó là sự khác biệt. Thì không biết là các bạn có thể hiểu được bài giảng của bác Brian. Bản thân mình nhận ra rất là nhiều điều, nhưng mà mình muốn các bạn chia sẻ trước. Yes. So any
Mike,
yes.
let me illustrate. In the religion of Islam,
Yes.
Muslim, in the religion of Islam, before it began, it started in what's called the Arabian Peninsula, Arabia in that day. And the people who later converted to Muslims had this idea that you do what is best for you. You make sure you don't care about anybody else. You only care about yourself. You care about your family. You protect yourself. You only do what is good for you. The golden rule says you do what is best for others. Do not only think of yourself, think of other people and put them first. Now, in America, we have many people who look out and live their life with the major intent of only pleasing themselves, only doing what's going to help me, only doing what I think is best for me. And I don't care about anybody else. So the golden rule says the exact opposite. We learn to think about other people and we begin to do things for them, to them, that are the things that Jesus taught. So this sermon, again, is very important. We're talking about 3 chapters in the Bible. So Jesus says, now you go out and do this. And that's the purpose of Matthew 7:12. It is not a way to earn a place in eternity. It is simply an application of what the Bible has to say and what Jesus has taught.
Yes. So yes, I think today is first time Lucy. She's not believer, but I share with her. You can learn about God and also learn about the way to live a good life. And so she agreed to John. So Lucy, can you understand what Mr. Pastor Brian shared? And do you have any question for him?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I understand 100%, but I think that I understand the meaning of your of Mr. Brian say. Um, I think that I want to brief that is we when we uh, we do something, uh, don't think about ourselves. We should think about and care another person. Yeah.
Yes,
um
absolutely.
yeah, if we think about myself, is selfish, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's in my opinion, when I do anything, I think a lot about another person. uh, do they like, or do they feel uncomfortable? I don't do that. If another person feel uncomfortable, I don't do that, like that.
All right.
Yeah,
Sounds like
that's about
you're
it.
understanding. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
want.
understand a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah.
Yes. How does this? Let me ask y'all a question. In the Vietnamese culture, is it? Do most people look out for themselves, or do they look out for other people? Do they try to help other people, or do they try to help only themselves? What would
Mm.
be the culture? In America, I can tell you what it is. It is oftentimes more so uh, than it is very common for people to only be concerned about themselves
Yes.
and not care about others in America. What is it like in Vietnam?
Yes. So Han, you are a counselor, so you listen many people. So I think you are the best to answer this question.
I think because Vietnamese people be influence uh, another country. So if we don't listen and we don't have a, a faith in rice, we easy to uh, focus uh, mm,
On ourselves.
yes, focus
Mm.
ourselves and uh, you know because I hear many the song in young song focus themselves and not care about another person.
Yes.
Yes, focus about their life, not one, not care about um, thing um, think of another people.
Yes. Yes.
But because I know, I think because God changed my mind and change we have faith in Christ and we have a new brand new and new new mind.
Yes.
So we will focus about the word of God and do what he do and do what he teach
Yes.
us and we will focus other people and care about profit other people than us than ourselves because if we don't uh, don't do the thing other people uh, I mean it's when when we don't do other people what the God of Word say us, that is a passive, not active. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But we need to put profit other people is not easy for us, but that is we too do the word of God say with us. Yeah.
Good, good. I agree. Yes.
Leo. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for your sharing, Pastor Brian. And in my opinion, God Himself, He also he has done golden rule as well, because I believe that he thinks about all those people is like us. That's why he came to the earth and died for us on the cross. That's why
Yes.
he do think for us. He did think for us, not himself, but for us. And for your lesson, for your teaching today, the point that when Jesus teaching in Matthew 7, you say that if we apply it in our life to practice the golden rule, so we will glorify much for the name of God. That is touching my heart so much.
Yes.
We will glorify very much his name. So I didn't think it before. So today you helped me to open my eyes that, wow,
Good. Good.
the golden
Yes.
rule that, can be glorified our God, our Father. Thank you, Pastor.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Pastor Brian,
Yes.
I think what you did today is very important. I never seen Matthew chapter 7 verse 1 before, and now 7:12, because it seems like 7:12 is the hinge, like the door, right? The hinge.
Right. Yes.
5, 6, and then 7 from 1 to 11 is about the teaching, what we should do, and the hinge here. If
Right.
you want God do it for you, you want to receive mercy, things like that, you do that for others first. I write out here that you listen to what I say and now go. You start and you are the first to do so. And the later on is about the two ways and things like that. So I see clearly. And also about your question about our culture, I can say our culture very much about ourselves, about what I do. I need to be sure I get benefit, my family get benefit, and if I can be rich, powerful, and harm other people, it's all right, no problem. And sometimes the work like ethics, about something good to do, something wrong should not do, we are not clear, and focus more and more about ourselves and family. So that is our culture, Pastor Brian. Yes.
All right. Good. All right. Okay, guys, thank you for letting me be a part of your life. I am noticing something.
Yes.
The English, particularly with Hang, today's first day with Lucy, you speak good English, but I've noticed that Hang and Leo are improving in their English.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that. Yeah. And so we want to do that. It is good to talk with other people and to learn the expressions of different. For example, in America, there are many, like in northern Vietnam, southern Vietnam. There's two different dialects, and the same thing in America. So it is good to to hear somebody. It's one thing to learn from a book, but when you hear somebody who is native born English, then it does help you to improve your diction and the way in which you speak. So I think it's a good thing. And on that. So, well, guys, thank you for letting me be a part of your life today. And Mike, let me know soon what you'd like to talk about next week.
Yes.
And we will go from there. I do want to make you aware that about the middle of June on one of the Thursdays, I may not be able to meet. I'll be in another city. I'll be in Nashville. I'm going to a convention, but I might be able to do it. Maybe it will. There's several variables because I'll be coming back. But so anyhow, we'll wait and see, but just kind of keep that in mind. So let me know, Mike. I will send you this PowerPoint. I apologize for not doing it yesterday. I thought about it this morning. Thought, oh no, I didn't do that. I will do it in just a few moments, and so you will have that in that. So Lord bless y'all. And now again, I want you to read Matthew 5, 6, and 7,
Yes.
and then Matthew 7, 12. Okay. So Lucy, we will get we'll get a copy of the Bible to you. Okay, so you can read that for yourself. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Sounds like a plan. All right. See y'all soon. Okay.
Yeah, Pastor Brian, if in
Yes.
case like I want to ask you a question personally about like Bible study about relate to the Bible, so can I send you a message on Facebook?
Yes. Yeah. That's also good, guys. If to ask me a specific question,
Yeah, I'm on Facebook.
do it on Facebook Messenger.
All right.
Do not do it in the public part, but do it in the private messaging. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll be
Tomorrow.
glad.
Yeah. God bless you, sir. Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Good night and have a good day there.
Bye bye. See y'all.
Yeah. Thank you a lot, Mr. Brand. Thank you a lot, Mike, Miss Hang, and Miss Leo. Good to see you today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see. Win.
Great
Yeah.
to see you.